Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam and that was a moment that not only 4 years of Wano has been building to, but really this entire post-time skip era. And so the out of context summary for chapter 1049 is as follows. Kaidos! Plural. In this chapter, Kaido starts big, then gets very small, before proceeding to become bigger and bigger and bigger, and look, now he's gotten so big that he's stuck in a hole. Also, Luffy is Joy Boy, Wano is saved, and various other happy endings. I mean, not those kind, but perhaps these kind. No Name Internet Stranger. No Name Internet Stranger and Andrew Razorblade achieve their own happy endings by pressing the subscribe button for the Grand Line Review, which will result in consistent injections of One Piece culture being administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you'd like to be our next subscriber of the day, then all you need to do is press that shockingly pressable red button, and please do say hi in the comments below if you are a new member of the Grand Fleet. Welcome. Alright, so this chapter it's a lot. Oda has really accelerated to what looks like an ending here. Whether that's a good thing or not, that's why we make the videos, to do the talky thing. But very excitingly, one thing this chapter certainly did do was tick off another one of our 2022 Bing boxes, because we finally received a Kaido flashback, which was super hype and insightful and other adjectives, but it wasn't, well, I guess it wasn't quite what I was looking for. There are a ton of fascinating things in this flashback section that ultimately culminates in a very glorious moment for Luffy as past events tie into present punchings. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. Like, something that shocked me was that we didn't touch on Kaido's Oni heritage at all. In its place, we were introduced to the less than delicious sounding Vodka Kingdom. I've never understood the appeal of vodka. There are better spirits out there. Almost all of them, really. Although it is a nice touch that our alcoholic ogre fish, who drinks like a fish, also comes from a country named Vodka. But how did he end up there? Where even is there? And where are the rest of the Oni? Questions! So many questions. However, with that said, 10-year-old Kaido might be my favorite Kaido design by far, because he's so simultaneously adorable and legitimately terrifying. And actually, come to think of it, he gives me some real vivid child Katakuri vibes. To be fair, that might just be because they both wear scarves. But also, the two had very similar paths to prominence. For whatever reason, they were both forced to fight at an incredibly young age, and really, Kaido is just a more potent version of that experience. Less about branches and sisters, and more about war, because there is nothing but war. Which was necessary insight. It does give us a pretty decent basis as to why Kaido has always been so obsessed with war, and I guess that's because he was raised thinking that was the only solution to life's various problems. However, in all honesty, the very first thing I thought of was Douglas Bullet. One Piece Stampede doesn't go into his backstory too much, which is a great detriment to the film in my personal opinion. However, he was born on an island involved in a never-ending war, and was forced to fight at a super young age, and I guess with that in mind, it's no surprise that he turned out to be quite Kaido-esque as an adult. Something of a power-obsessed madman who only values strength, because on the battlefield, absolutely nothing else would save you. One part I quite liked was when King Vodka made a deal with the Marines to trade Kaido, if only because of the very strong parallels between Kaido and Big Mom, because she was originally going to be sold to the Marines by Mother Carmel, so somewhere out there's some sort of universe where Big Mom and Kaido both joined the Marines and probably even became admirals. And as a very minor element, I also appreciated touching on the idea of the heavenly tribute. I like exploring what the greed of the world nobles are forcing these poor countries to do, because in the end, this whole One Piece thing, it comes back to them. If they didn't force these countries to pay these abhorrent mega taxes, then it's entirely possible that the Kaido we know now never would have come to be. So it's a nice tie-in to the world government really going on to cause many of their own greatest problems. Much like how Bob Lucci, in hindsight, was effectively ordered to kill himself so that Luffy could achieve a power-up. And speaking of CP0, and sorry we will be jumping around a bit here, but Pineapple has officially left the building. The last Cipher Pol member left both living and standing has fled the battlefield, clearly confident in the outcome. And more specifically, that outcome not being in Kaido's favor. So it's only 2 panels here, but to me, they're pretty damn exciting, because Pineapple's report is going to be the vehicle to the world receiving some very, very big news. Back to Kaido though, we see a very abridged, and I suppose purposely vague series of events that lead him to the point it is where we are now, including an initial bounty of 70 million berries, which I would just like to point out means that at one stage in her life, Robin had a higher bounty than Kaido in an equal stage of his life. Kaido at age 10 was 70 million berries, meanwhile Nico Robin's bounty at age 10 was 79 million. Now, to be fair, maybe Kaido's bounty would be worth a lot more if we adjusted for inflation over 2 decades. And that's why you're all watching this video, right? For fictional economics. But that aside, I do like the in-world consistency of that number though. For quite a while, I felt that Robin's initial bounty was a bit of a lowball number considering her threat. But now that we know the world government saw Child Robin as more of a threat than Child Kaido, look, I'm pretty satisfied. Now, the other thing that satisfied me better than any intimate partner I've ever had was the answer to this question. Why did Kaido get captured so many times? I love the given answer that Kaido allowed himself to be caught just because he was hungry. I just think that's brilliant because it expands Kaido's character so much by saying so little. The idea that the quickest and most efficient method of finding food wasn't invading a town or something, but it was just easier to get caught. It's almost like being imprisoned was Kaido's equivalent of going to bed at night. That was when he chose to rest and recuperate. There are also some great hints of the relationship between he and Big Mom. I mean, she only appears in 2 panels, and one of those panels is a silhouette, so it's not much of an appearance, but I still got a really solid vibe of their dynamic. Out of context, Big Mom in this chapter is actually portrayed as, dare I say it, responsible, and it hammered home that sibling-style concern that she tends to display for Kaido from time to time. Although again, it did lead to a bit of an unanswered question I have, which is how did that relationship sour? Kaido just left after Rox was beaten and Big Mom was all like, all right, you're dead to me, boy. And I guess that's the thing about this flashback as a whole. It was what I would describe as serviceable. It gave us the bare minimum of what was necessary to have this incoming cathartic defeat. And this might just be my own personal expectations ruining life, as per usual, but I just wanted a little bit more. For example, with motivation, I still don't quite buy why Kaido does the things it is he does. On paper, I definitely see what Oda's going for. Kaido was a child born into war, and over time his philosophy of weapons and power being paramount was only reinforced. So by chance, he meets Higurashi, who is the old shape-shifting lady for those of you who don't know or care about her name. The second one's more likely, I think. And she's like, you know what? I'm a Kurozumi. I like revenge. And you're good at revenge. Want to lay waste to all of Wano? And Kaido was just like, yes. Yes, I do. Which is fine. Again, it is serviceable. I think I was just hoping that there would be a deeper reason for Kaido choosing Wano, and hey, there still might be. That or Kaido discovered its importance over time, and this was more of a fated event. Oh, and also something that did strike me as interesting is that not once during this entire flashback did we see Kaido smile like he did during King's flashback. You know, that beaming Luffy expression. I can't do it. My face wasn't built for smiling. But where did it come from, and where did it go? There's just so many things that I desperately want to know about Kaido, and if not now, then when? Let's get to the best part though, because Kaido is finally putting this whole Joy Boy business to rest, claiming to have discovered who it will be. And it will be the person who punches him into a comically specific dragon-shaped hole. All jokes aside, that moment hit me hard. I know that flashbacks right before defeat, well, they're a bit of a shonen trope, but it's because they work so damn well. Juxtaposition is just, it's too powerful of a tool for writers to use. It's OP is what it is. It's almost cheating. And you can tell that Kaido realized this was Joy Boy before he was actually in that state of knockout, because his final words to Luffy were to ask what kind of world he wants to create. Having heard tell of this joyous boy, Kaido uses his last moments to take a peek into the future of what Luffy has in store for this world. And the answer is, well, it's probably not what Kaido expected, or alternatively, maybe it's exactly what he expected, because we see a close-up of his eye open in shock, you know, the way eyes do. So maybe Kaido had even heard these words once before from Roger, or even about Roger, and these words may be even more impactful than the impending punch in the face. Either way, it is definitely the perfect Luffy response. I just want to make a world where me and my friends can eat stuff. For free, ideally. And it's ridiculous, but it works because it's Luffy. It's also a solid contender to be Luffy and Roger's hidden dream. It absolutely fits in with all the reactions from Ace, Sabo, Whitebeard, and Odin. Plus, it's easy to see Luffy having said it as a child to Shanks as well. And as I just mentioned, Kaido was thoroughly shocked to hear these words. But that's why Luffy needs to become the Pirate King, because the world he wants to make cannot be done any other way. I mean, obviously nothing is in any way confirmed, but it is by far my favorite thought so far. I said far twice. Should I re-record it? No. And as for the moment of impact, I myself am in shock here, as I tend to be after most final boss finishes. It's very surreal, and the words Luffy defeated Kaido still sound a bit wrong coming out of my mouth, and probably any mouths. Leave a comment if you have a mouth. but it was something that I had to immediately go back and re-experience several times over. Because the first time I read it, I was like, no, that didn't just happen. So it took a bit of time for everything to sink in. The impact was phenomenal though. Luffy thoroughly thwacking the Emperor Hood out of Kaido was so satisfying. Although my favorite part was when he hit the Wano mainland and made a spiral dragon-shaped hole in the ground, which is great because that is Luffy's zany cartoon powers at work. Of course, if you smash the villain through the ground, you're gonna get a perfect outline of their body. I also think it's very cool that Kaido's defeat is more or less a callback to his introduction. Both times he fell from the sky and left a hole in the ground in the vague shape of his body. So that's another lovely bookend to this character. With that said, I do wish that book was a little bit thicker, but I do appreciate the ends. One interesting result of this is that Wano now has 2 Emperors of the Sea housed underground, both of whom are clearly not dead, and it feels like the kind of thing that just maybe might become a problem again at some point. Like, how do we deal with them from here? Right now they might be having a pleasant punch nap, but what do we do? Do we just like cover the ground in sea stone or something? Seal them in like a tomb? Of course, I should also acknowledge a fairly prevalent online sentiment that this may not be the end of Kaido, although personally this chapter makes me feel like it is. Everything about the chapter pretty much perfectly wrapped up the entire raid scenario, and having Kaido return from here to face Luffy in some sort of final battle, whilst definitely not impossible, isn't necessarily dramatically sensible, because every shred of tension is now gone. There's a reason why the final panels of the chapter have nothing to do with Kaido. Onigashima lands safely, Momo and Luffy collapse exhausted, and for the first time since this raid started in, late 2020, we get to exhale. I breathed a literal sigh of relief when I saw the panel of Onigashima having landed. Less so because of the tension and stuff, but more so because this signals the end of a very, very long journey. An amazing journey. I think that Wano has been all sorts of awesome that nobody anticipated, but seeing Kaido punch down and everyone being safe, it felt like it lifted a weight from my shoulders. Like I can finally relax during this arc. It's hard to explain, and it might just be a weird me thing, but it's a mixture of satisfaction, reflection, and the beginnings of a little bit of hype for whatever is coming after Wano. And I also think it was a really good move to have the Wano citizens on that final page as well, because now they basically get to go to sleep and wake up the next morning to discover that they're free. It's a lot more touching than I thought it would be, considering all we see is a shot of 3 complete randoms. But I think that is a credit to how Oda has worked and worked and worked at emphasizing why we should care about these people. And just on that, a very underrated moment of this chapter was also that embrace of Dendro and Hiyori. Sort of like Onigashima landing for me, I imagine that hug was Hiyori finally being able to exhale after 20 years of holding her breath in hell. This chapter was really well wrapped up. Even the plotline with the fire and the water ended up bringing everyone to the same location in a nice, neat way. Now everyone is both safe and together, which is why this feels like the end to me. Which means this is as good a time as any to direct you to this next video. It's good, so I look forward to seeing you there.